And those are the live visuals that we are getting to you from Johannesburg, where the event to mark the 100th birth anniversary of Nelson Mandela is underway. This is Mandela's centennial commemoration event, which will be addressed by former US President Barack Obama in just a few moments from now. Remember, both men were the first black presidents of their respective countries. This keynote address by the former U.S. President Barack Obama will be coinciding with these events to mark 100 years since the birth of former South African President Nelson Mandela. He passed away in 2013 at the age of 95.
Thank you very much. Soweto Gospel Choir. They will be back again later when they will be singing together with Kirk Wallam and Thandiswa Mazwai. So there will be a music tribute at the end. Now, I'd like you to please help me welcome someone actually who was so brave when she's surrounded by these men and they were trying to get hold of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and she said, I will do it. And we are collaborating with them at the moment. And this young lady, she will be our program director for the day. Please help me welcome Busi Mkumbuzi.
President Cyril Ramaphosa, President Barack Obama, Mrs. Graça Machel, Professor Njabulo Ndebele, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, and Mr. Sello Hatang. Your Excellencies, heads of states and government, past and present, honorable ministers, members of parliament, provincial premiers, mayors, and all members of government, leaders of opposition parties, veterans of the liberation struggle, former Nelson Mandela lecture speakers, business leaders, and leaders of faith-based organizations, political and social activists, members of the Mandela family, distinguished guests, fellow South Africans, and the world. It is an honor to stand before you today to celebrate the centenary of Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Whom former President Barack Obama describes as more than a man, but as being a symbol of the struggle for justice, equality, and dignity in South Africa and all across the globe. In 1994, the year of my birth, Madiba emerged as president of a democratic South Africa. From the onset, he was committed to turning a country torn apart by years of colonialism and apartheid into a fully functioning democracy where all South Africans are equal before the law. And yet, despite our notable progress, the situation right now in the world calls on us to reflect deeply. Global political trends portray a concerted assault against the democratic values that Mandela and his contemporaries espoused. All over the world, there is a resurgence of racial and class exclusivity, of nationalism, and the maintenance of gross inequality through corruption and systematic greed. Patriarchy persists at the peril of women and the LGBT community. We did not think that so far into democracy, so many people would again face the threats of losing their elemental rights, their freedom, and their dignity. This is therefore an auspicious occasion, ladies and gentlemen, to reflect on the principles and values that defined Mandela's life and legacy. Principles such as tolerance, inclusivity, reconciliation, and the rule of law. These principles underpin Madiba's legacy and can heal the world of its social ills. These principles also broke the political deadlock in the 90s, and I truly believe that they need to be invigorated in 2018. Standing before you as a young black woman born and bred in the sprawling working-class townships of Soweto, this occasion must especially motivate the youth. It must motivate them to take the forefront in the endless struggle to sustain livelihoods globally. During this centennial celebration of Madiba's birth, I encourage all dignitaries, institutions of government, business, and all fervent supporters of Mandela's legacy to put their weight behind the youth, who I believe are the true custodians of our future. With no further ado, ladies and gentlemen, to mark the opening of this special occasion, it is a great privilege to welcome the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. He is an established scholar who has been a key figure in South African higher education, an author whose critical and creative writing have tackled the effects of apartheid on black communities, protest, democracy, and reconciliation. Please give a resounding applause to Professor Njabulo Ndebele.
President Ramaphosa, President Obama, Mama Michelle, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, and so many distinguished guests who out there who have graced our occasion with your presence. And ladies and gentlemen, all of you from far and near. On behalf of the trustees of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, I welcome you to the 16th Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture. Thank you for joining us in your numbers to remember Mandela on the eve of what would have been his 100th birthday, and for doing so by coming to listen to a lecture by an extraordinary leader, President Barack Obama. This is the biggest Nelson Mandela lecture we have ever hosted, something eminently appropriate, I think, for the centenary. Our late trustee, the Venerable Ahmed Kathrada, never stopped demanding that we should hold the lecture in a stadium. Today, he has finally got his wish. "28 years ago, with one hand clasped around the hand of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, the other raised in a fist, Nelson Mandela walked out of Victor Verster prison into a country waiting for his leadership. Would he, outside prison at last, continue to inspire as much as he had done when he was inside? In a racially polarized society where political friends and enemies were frighteningly easy to identify by skin color, few South Africans were aware just how Mandela's release represented a unique and unexpected ways the complex art of the possible. It required that he take enormous personal risks to lay foundations for a negotiated end to over 3 centuries of racist, economic, and social oppression in South Africa. He had to find a way of cutting across embedded histories, structures of governing, and the human attitudes they had given life to over time. He had to find a way for South Africans to begin to see one another differently. It was a task that required a particular kind of leader. Now, for this particular leader, there are countless anecdotes that individually capture some essence of him. The anecdotes collected recently and published in one of our centenary publications, which bears the title, "I Remember Nelson Mandela," makes for a most joyous read that I recommend. These anecdotes are told by many from various stations of life who worked for Madiba or for his organizations. But today I want to recall a personal all-time favorite anecdote of mine. It is not in that book. Richard Stengel, who collaborated with Nelson Mandela on his autobiography, The Long Walk to Freedom, tells that particular one. And here it goes. We were once on this airplane flight down in Natal, and it was a prop plane. I think there were 6 seats in it, and there were maybe 4 of us in the plane.
As soon as he gets in an airplane, he, Madiba, picks up a newspaper. He adores newspapers. For many years, he didn't have them and revels in the touch of them. And he reads every stupid story.